Well, let's get this meeting started. Leslie, will you call the roll? By unmuting first, star 6.
Josh Altum.
Here.
Chris Hugh. Here? No?
Chris is here. I can see
I'm
his
here.
reflection.
Okay, hi Chris. Mayor Pro Tem Sandra Lee.
Here.
Linda Rhodes.
Here.
Tad Wandell.
Here.
Mayor, you have a quorum.
All right, the item 1, George, you want to take item 1 here on the work session?
Sure, I'd be glad to. And Mr. Mayor, I am honored, frankly, to introduce the folks who are here to recognize your service tonight. We have 3 very distinguished people and Mr. Williams, who couldn't be here, but just by way of introduction to the public, Mr. Oscar Trevino has been the mayor of North Richland Hills, I think most of my life, but at least since 2002. And he's currently on the executive committee and past president of the TRTC. Mr. Ken Shedder is the mayor of the city of Burleson since 2004. He is also a current member and past president of the TRTC. And as I've learned, is also the vice chair of Greater Johnson County Transportation Coalition. So very, very involved in transportation related issues in Tarrant County. Mr. Williams, who could not be here, I was going to say, has been mayor of Arlington since 2015 and is currently the chair of the TRTC. Most importantly, Jeff Williams is a Texas Tech Red Raider, and I'm sorry he couldn't be here for that. But our other member who is here and we've been talking to is Mr. Victor Vandegrift. Obviously, Mr. Vandegrift is known to most of us as Mr. Transportation, certainly in North Texas, but for some of us in all of Texas. And he is currently the executive director of the Tarrant Transportation Coalition. He has served as the North Texas Commissioner on the Texas Transportation Commission. He has served as chair of the North Texas Tollway Authority and as chair of the Texas Department of Motor Vehicles Board. So you have some incredibly competent and contributing members of this community to be here, Mr. Mayor. So with that, Mayor Trevino, the floor is yours to make this presentation.
Well, George, thank you very much. And Brian, what we wanted to do, myself, Ken, Jeff Williams, and Victor Vandegrift, we wanted to take an opportunity to thank you for the service that you provided to the Tarrant Regional Transportation Coalition as our past chair prior to Jeff coming into that position. I've got a letter that I've been holding because Ken and I and Jeff were supposed to come see you in March, and then we all got COVIDed, and so we were all doing distance meetings, and our lives changed. But I'd like to read you the letter from Jeff Williams first. And it says, "Dear Brian, I'm very honored to congratulate you on your service as chair of the Tarrant Regional Transportation Coalition. I and the other board members were privileged to serve under your leadership during your 2017 to 2019 term. As you well know, TRTC is a broad-based nonprofit committed to finding solutions to the mobility challenges facing our region. As TRTC chair, you promoted increased investment in transportation and more efficient movement of people and goods across the Metroplex. In addition to your service on Cannondale City Council and TRTC, you have a history of active citizenship locally, regionally, and nationally. Your service includes board and committee representation for the TML, the Southeast Tarrant Transportation Partnership, the Tarrant County Homeless Coalition, Tarrant County 911 District, National League of Cities, Council on Youth Education and Families, Small Cities Council, and the Transportation and Infrastructure Services Committee. Congratulations again on your accomplishment. May you find success and happiness as immediate past chair and in your many journeys to come." And that it says, "Thank you, Mayor," from Mayor Jeff Williams. And I'll get that to you next time I see you. I also want to present you with a plaque, if you can see it, and I'll bring that to you. It's TRTC Transportation Coalition recognizing Mayor Brian Johnson of Cannondale for 2 years of service as chairman of the Tarrant Regional Transportation Coalition, 2017 through 2019. We sincerely thank you for your leadership as one of the region's prominent transportation advocates. And Brian, I'd like to tell your council and your city folks, your staff members, how much you helped in getting the A20 287 project there in your back door to a resolution and to where we can start turning dirt. Your leadership helped us through that process. And I personally thank you for all the time and all the effort that you've made to get us to this point. Now the work hasn't ended, and we're reworking the face of the TRTC with Victor's help, and that's to get the private sector more involved in our future development and future direction of more innovative transportation in the west side of the Metroplex. I know you're very involved in it, and I know you keep your council abreast of it. But Brian, from a regional standpoint, thank you for all you've done for us. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to Mayor Shetter from Burleson. Ken?
Thank you, Oscar, and thanks for giving us an opportunity to take the first few minutes of your council meeting here so that we can honor our colleague, Mayor Johnson. And I'll just echo Oscar's comments and say how much I appreciate Brian's long work on the Tarrant Regional Transportation Coalition. It's, you know, we're talking specifically about these last couple of years as chair, but really he's devoted many, many years to work with the Tarrant Regional Transportation Coalition on our executive committee and has spent countless hours with us advocating for transportation improvements for the region and specifically for the Kennedale part of Tarrant County and the 82287 improvements as Oscar was talking about. But the other thing I will add is that during Brian's tenure, we really had a critically important transition in the history of the TRTC that included the retirement of our longtime previous executive director, Vic Soom, and kind of a change in focus where we had spent the last several years really focused on highway and roadway improvements. And we spent the latter part of Brian's tenure as the chair really doing rethinking, reimagining, and developing a new strategic plan for TRTC. And Brian really led that process and guided us through the hiring of Victor Vandergriff and a renewed focus on mobility innovation, which is really going to take us into the future of transportation. Will be important not only for our ability to meet the needs of our changing population and growing population, but will also give us the ability to compete with other regions in the United States. And so I think it's been a critically important transition. And, you know, I don't know that anybody could have led the way through that transition the way Brian did. So I am very thankful, not only that Brian was willing to give of his time and himself in the way that he did, but particularly that he did it at such a critically important time for TRTC. So we really have, thanks to Mayor Johnson's leadership, TRTC has a renewed relevance and importance going into the next legislative session. So thank you and congratulations on a job well done, Mayor Johnson. We appreciate you.
All right, well, thank you very much. Transportation's been a passion of mine, as you know, and the pivot we're doing, bringing in the private sector, trying to align ourselves with some of the big people. I know Victor can tell us that we've got some big movers and shakers in the industry on. Victor, who all have we added?
We have Alliance, BNSF, Bell, and Lockheed that have come on board, and we have 8 seats total to fill, and we're working on the other 4. So we've got a good start.
Well, thank you all for that. And Oscar and Ken and Victor, I appreciate you being here. And next time I see you in person, Oscar, which who knows what that'll be, I'll get that plaque from you.
Sounds good. Thank y'all very much. And to your council, we really appreciate your sharing Brian's time with us. It's really interesting to see it doesn't matter the size of the community as we all get involved in the transportation needs. It matters that we're all there together, representing all our citizens, not just one group. It's the entire region working together to get something done. So thank y'all, George, thank you. And to the City Council of Kennedale, thank you so much for all you do for us. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks to the City of Kennedale for your longtime commitment to the TRTC. It's very much appreciated and noticed. So thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, well, let's get on to item 2, presentation by Samco. George, Lakita.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to ask Lakita if she has any comments or would like to introduce Mark.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This evening, we're bringing forth an opportunity for the council to consider a refunding on some of the existing debts. Particularly, we're talking about our 2011 COs. We are approximately 9 years into that debt, and we see an outstanding opportunity to go to the market and try to do a private placement to go ahead and do a refunding and get that debt refinanced at a much lower interest rate. So I'm sure you've already looked at the material in your council packets, but that savings could potentially be up to approximately $170,000 over the next 10 years. And those savings would be recognized in our general debt service fund. So we have a short presentation, just kind of walking you through what that would look like and what next steps would be if council agrees to move forward. And so unless there's any other questions for me, I'd like to turn it over to Andrew Friedman from Samco.
Thank you very much, Lakita. Mayor and Council, I'm trying to screen share here the presentation that Lakita referenced. So hopefully you all can see that on your Zoom. Lakita did such a good job that there's really nothing for me to add. She's covered the refunding, but the COs 2011 become callable in February. We can take them from the investor without penalty 90 days in advance of that, hence why we are bringing this to your attention for action now. There's about $1,515,000 of those COs remaining outstanding that will mature between now and 2031, and they carry an interest rate of 4%. Interest rates have been very, very low over the last several years, but especially in the pandemic, as there's been a flight to quality in municipal bonds. And so we believe we can get an interest rate net of cost of issuance around 2.35% or perhaps better. That would lead to a gross savings of roughly $170,000. And we'll just have to see where interest rates go. We're entering potentially a tricky time in the market with a presidential election rearing its head in the next couple of weeks. So it'll be interesting to see how the markets respond to that, depending upon who they've priced in as the winner already and who actually wins. And so I do caveat these results based upon that, and time will tell certainly over the next few weeks. And then as Lakita referenced, looking for a green light, so to speak, an informal approval from the council this evening to begin marketing or begin the process of drafting documents so we can market this private placement to potential investors. And then we would plan to bring this back to the council on December 15th with bids in hand, review the bid results with the council, and then seek your approval at that time. And on December 15th, you would know the interest rate that we're able to lock in and the resulting savings that we'd be locking in on a fixed interest rate refinancing. Again, we plan to close before the end of the year. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have based upon that.
Any questions? Sandra?
No questions.
Chad?
No questions, just thanks for keeping your eyes on the dollars and finding us ways to save money.
Josh?
Absolutely.
No, it's a no-brainer.
That brings me to Chris.
No, and thanks to Lakita and to Samco for their hard work on this.
And Linda.
No questions.
All right, let's move on to work session item number 3. Thank you very much. Petition issuance of $6 million in certificate of obligations. George, Larry, Lakita.
Mayor, I'd like Lakita to introduce this topic as well.
Mayor, this topic is regarding the 6 million in COs that we've talked about issuing for quite some time now. A few months back, we gave the council a list of a comprehensive list of several capital projects and things that we've identified that we'd like to get started on in the near future. And you're aware that we budgeted to receive the 6 million in fiscal year 21. So we asked Samco to come this evening to talk about any ramifications or anything that council will need to know as far as when you would like to issue the debt. There are a couple of different options that we have, but I'd like for Samco to kind of walk you through those so that we can make the best decision as to the timing of that new debt. So I'd like to turn it over to Samco at this time.
Thank you, Lakita. Moving into that same presentation, in visiting with George and Lakita over the last couple of months, putting together what we call a tax rate impact analysis. And that's looks at our taxable assessed value history, what we expect our taxable assessed values to do over the coming years. And then we fold in the debt that we already have outstanding and look at how we might be able to structure future debt issuances into that existing portfolio of debt and what the resulting interest and sinking tax rate would be. And so we looked at your taxable assessed value growth. Since 2013, you've averaged 7.69% year over year growth in your tax base. It's anyone's guess at this moment what that will mean in a post-COVID world. But as we went through this, we've used a 3% growth rate on top of our latest 2020 certified values. And with that in mind, this chart of numbers here is the tax rate impact analysis. I've labeled the columns from 1 to 9. We're looking at beginning with a fiscal year 2020, which you've just closed the books on in red, as well as the 2021 values in red as well, with the goal here of determining how much debt we could issue without raising our INS tax rate. And so as you follow this all the way across from the fiscal year 2021, got a tax rate in here of 19.14 cents based upon our existing portfolio of debt. Based on our analysis, based upon a 3% growth for the next 3 years, we could issue a combined $14 million, split out between $6 million issued in sometime in 2021 and $8 million in 2024 for that combined $14 million without having to raise our INS tax rate from its existing level. Now, in order to do that, when we sell debt, we typically do, we sell debt that's supported by an INS tax levy in the summer after you've received your certified values. And then we set the first payment for February of that following year so that you've got time to structure and sell the debt after you've received your certified values so that you can then set your tax rate for the coming year to include the payment, that first bond payment that would come due in February. It's typically how we have advised, and certainly what we recommend, because it removes variables from the equation, such as our taxable values not coming in as high as we were projecting, or perhaps they come in higher than we're projecting and we're having to lower our INS tax rate. Now, that's not to say that it cannot be done, but there's a certain risk in selling your debt before you know your certified values, hence why we typically recommend that we sell debt and begin that process in the summer, wait until we've got certified values in hand, which typically come that third or fourth week in July, before entering the market and locking down a financing structure. And so each of these $6 million and $8 million issued in 2024 assume a late July or August bond sale. And so that would then deliver the money to the city's accounts to be spent towards whichever projects are being funded sometime in September of 2021 in the case of the $6 million issue, and September of 2024 in the case of the $8 million issue. But you're in good shape. Again, time will tell what taxable assessed values we're going to get. Given that we're in the middle of a pandemic, a lot of people are uncertain what appraisal districts will be doing next year, as each city has experienced different things as a result of COVID. It would certainly be our recommendation this next year to wait until we've got certified values in hand before selling our debt rather than rolling the dice. But George or Lakita, if I've left anything out, please remind me. Otherwise, I turn it over to you, the council, and Mr. Mayor for any questions you have. I'd be happy to answer.
And can we stop sharing the screen now?
Absolutely. Sorry.
No problem. All right, so questions, Chad?
Oh, no questions.
Sandra?
No questions.
Chris?
I guess a clarifying question. I know that at a high level, we have discussed the need for some equipment for our fire department. I'm not saying this is the number, but we're looking in the area of at least $1 million. And there has been some concern in the past over using debt to fund items for longer than the service life of those items. So I was just going to ask Mr. Friedman to maybe clarify for us and for citizens that are listening, if we elected to use a portion of this money for that equipment, can the debt be structured to match the expected life cycle of the equipment so that we're not paying for it years after it's taken out of service?
That's a great question. And the answer is absolutely. That's something that we work with Lakita and George each time we go through a financing to ensure that we're matching the useful life with the term of the financing. That's certainly something that the Attorney General, who approves all certificate of obligations or bonds or tax notes that are sold in the state of Texas, also pays attention to. When we sell a large issuance like this, we might have several different projects that are part of the financing, and internally we can break out and have individual debt service schedules within an overarching certificate of obligation that amortizes different projects over different lengths of time. It's certainly something we do all the time, whether it's police vehicles, fire equipment, et cetera, et cetera. So that's something we'll absolutely take into consideration and structure accordingly.
Thank you, Mr. Friedman. I just want everyone to understand that that's certainly doable, and that apparently it sounds like you're saying that is a common practice to use.
Absolutely. And a legal requirement.
Thank you, sir.
Linda?
No questions.
Josh?
No questions.
So let me just clarify, because often you hear say, well, they're going to issue this debt and they're not going to the citizens. The differences between a CO and a general obligation, and Andrew, you probably can help me with this as well, is COs are usually designed for what you need to get done. It's a street, it's a water line, it's a sewer line. we tend to think of general obligations you go to the voters or for want. Now, and this may be also with Drew. Drew, if you were to go say that we wanted to do $6 million in street, water, and sewer repair, and we went to a general obligation and went to the voters and it was declined, how long would we have to wait before we could actually get in there and then borrow the money to do it? We can't go straight back to a CO, is that correct?
And I don't know the answer to that off the top of my head. I don't know if Andrew does.
3 years.
3 years. So in other words, if you went.
Well, I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor, let me clarify. If a certificate of obligation were prevented, you could not go and try to finance that through a certificate of obligation for 3 years.
You mean
if a general obligation bond election is turned down by the voters,
right.
I believe you're prohibited from going for a CO for 3 years as well, but you can continue to call a bond election over and over again, should you so choose.
Right, but what happens is then that if you don't get the bond election, then you don't fix those streets until whenever that decides to happen. So cities use COs primarily to accomplish infrastructure needs.
Absolutely. Mark and I use the wants and needs analogy very often. If you were talking about building a new city hall, we would counsel you that should be done through a general obligation bond. If you had water and sewer improvements that were needing to be made and perhaps the TCEQ had issued an administrative order that you had to make those repairs, we would encourage you not to go through a bond election for the simple reason that if turned down, the TCEQ will force you to borrow the money to make those repairs, which might look like you're acting against the wishes of your electorate.
And Larry, if I remember correctly, you gave us almost $90 million worth of projects that need to be done.
Yes, those numbers are a few years old as well.
All right, I just wanted to have that clarified. Any other questions? All right. Item 4, receive a report from the City of Arlington and hold discussion regarding the status of plan to convert customer service functions and utility billing to the City of Arlington. Thank you, Andrew.
You're welcome,
Thank you,
sir.
Andrew. Bye.
Bye-bye.
George, is this you?
All right, okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
I have invited Mr. Craig Cummings, who's the Director of Utilities for the City of Arlington, to give the council a status update. You are aware that we've been working now for some time to do several things, including convert our customer service billing over from muni billing to the City of Arlington. We've encountered some issues with getting part of what needs to be done with regard to meters installed and meter registers repaired and so forth. And we also have a plan that you have approved to connect our water system to that of the City of Arlington. And that was done through the O&M agreement that we signed over a year ago. And there's been a significant amount of progress made on that. So I've invited Mr. Cummings to come and just give an update to the council on where, from our City of Arlington perspective, we are on those issues. We're getting very close to converting the billing. And with council's indulgence, then I would like to ask Craig Cummings if he would make a short presentation that he has to the council. Craig?
Thank you. Mayor and Council, Craig Cummings, Arlington Water Utilities Director. I'd like to give you a short presentation this evening so that we can go through what we've done to date and what is planned in the near future. So hopefully all will work here with the PowerPoint. Okay, as we've stated, this is what we consider a collaboration all along. It's beneficial to both parties, and we're next door neighbors, so we like working in a beneficial fashion. So I'll talk about the different milestones that we've had through the the dates here. Of course, we go back to 2019 in April, where we began operations. On the operation and the maintenance side, pretty much taking care of the water and sewer system from that point forward. In December of that year, the city of Kennedale was thrown a curveball by Fathom when they abruptly went out of business, and they ended their customer service contract with Kennedale rather abruptly. Kennedale hired Muni Billing until the transition to our customer service here in Arlington. And since that time, we've kind of been working through primarily the development of the customer service database, which we pretty much have had to build from scratch because Fathom did not provide either the city of Kennedale or Arlington all the information that was necessary to build that database of customers. So it's been a little bit of walking through the dark here, putting that together, but we feel very good that we've got the right information in the right places. In April of 2020, we started reading the water meters for Kennedale. And again, because of some of that information that was not forthcoming from Fathom, something as simple as where is the meter became a bit of a challenge. Time had passed since the city of Kennedale had meter readers out, and a lot of the staff perhaps changed over, and they didn't know where in a front yard, a side yard, the meters were. So we spent a great deal of time looking for the meters, just figuring out where the meter boxes were. But most of those had to be done manually because the two systems wouldn't talk to each other. We knew that from the very beginning. A part that's known as the meter interface unit had to be changed out, and that's what our first order of business was. To give you a quick little background on meters, I'm not going to get into this very far. You have the water meter, which is kind of the brass colored object below. It's a dumb device. It simply spins there, and there's a magnet inside, and the white part on top, which is the register, the old-fashioned register simply counted the number of spins of that magnet, and that changed the integrator, or what looks like an odometer on a car, on top of the meter face. They've since gone digital, but the engineering is pretty much the same. It spins and it's counted digitally in that white device. And there's a cord attached to that, which goes to the meter interface unit, which is what I spoke of just a moment ago, where we needed to change that. And that kind of takes all the data, translates it, sends it up to a water tower, and then to whomever's going to do the billing. The white part in this picture is what gave us an awful lot of heartburn here. We had some legacy issues with the Neptune meters that were used, and we just had some problems with the way they were connected. So all of those units had to be changed out. We thought we could reuse the majority of some of the newer Neptune registers with the meter interface units, but it turned out that that was unfortunately wishful thinking. Like I said, because the city of Kennedale had sunk cost in the system that they had purchased from Kennedale, we tried to salvage as much of that as we could. And the biggest part of it, the meters and the registers, were what we thought we could salvage. But as we found out, a lot of the registers had what's known as firmware faults in them. That's basically the hard-coded information within the register. And there were a variety of other problems, cracked glass in them, things of that nature. So we ended up with about a third of the water meter registers, or about 1,000, that would not communicate with the installed meter interface units. We called various experts from Neptune, had many a meeting in the city there, and tried a whole lot of different things, but ultimately, Kennedale, unfortunately, Neptune, unfortunately, kind of walked away from the Kennedale issue and said, we can't go any further with this. And they wouldn't even honor it under warranty. This was after we had taken a few of these registers out of service and sent them to the factory where they tested them and said, yeah, we tried this and this, we got them to work, send us some more. Well, we were somewhat optimistic in that, and we took 250 of the registers out of the Kennedale system, sent them to the factory for Neptune to do what they had to do and send them back to us. And the promise was it would be a quick turnaround. Well, the moral of the story here is if you do not have a register on a meter, as I mentioned, the meter itself is a dumb device. It will not measure the water that's being utilized. So you had to go ahead and estimate the bills during that period of time. And I think many of the council members had quite a few phone calls about the estimating because unfortunately, and I'm not sitting here defending anything that occurred there, but Muni Billing didn't have the data that Fathom had. They only had a few months of usage, so estimating a bill was very, very difficult for them. But ultimately, we kept haranguing. We kept on Neptune and said, we've got to get these registers back. We've got to get them reinstalled. Well, they did send those back. Unfortunately, they weren't sent back in a condition that many of them could be used. So I'm just here to apologize for all of that inconvenience of working through Neptune and this whole register issue, but we've got a great handle on it. And I think this month is going to be completely different with how we read meters. As I mentioned, those defective and I guess somewhat damaged now registers were returned about the 1st of this month. We had a meeting with George and Lakita, and we came up with a plan because we were getting virtually nowhere with Neptune. And the cost of purchasing a new register from Neptune was more expensive than the bulk purchasing of a brand new meter that Arlington could provide to Kennedale. So we purchased meters at a lower cost than new registers from Neptune and started installing those. And I'm happy to say that all the registers that we removed to send to Neptune to be checked by their factory have been replaced. And we have new meters out in the system, and they are working as we expected them to work many months ago. So that portion is in fact done. So as we read meters this month, it should be completely different than any month up to this particular point. So that's kind of the meter update in a nutshell. Now, moving on to customer service. We have 100% of the customer accounts done for Kennedale. They're in our software known as Enquesta, and we are in fact doing mock billings at this time. We basically try different scenarios where we put a lot of different scenarios or oddball things into the billing and just run it to see if there's anything that churns out that would be noted as creating an error. It's going well. So one of the things we want to do is at the end of this month, we want to see Muni Billing run their billing with the numbers we've provided. We're going to do the same thing, putting those numbers into our software in Enquesta. We're going to look at the results from Muni Billing, look at our results compared to two, look to see if there's any particular issues with that. That's very, very important because we want to make sure the product as it comes out at the end, that billing going to the customer through the refurbished system in Kennedale is right as rain. The customer service conversion date, we haven't firmly set that, but we are shooting for January 1st. And I think the next couple of months will be the true test there because like I said, at the end of this month, we want to do that testing, and then we will run another Muni bill testing the following month, and we believe we'll be ready to go at that point. Let me quickly move to the water distribution interconnections. We do have 5 functional interconnects at this time, and I've listed the points here where we do have those interconnects. There's a map. It's a little bit difficult to read, but what that allows the city of Arlington to do is feed kind of the eastern part of the Kennedale system from Arlington. And if you didn't know, we had a problem with one of the large wells this summer. One of the legs on the power coming in dropped off, And it happened to be actually one of the hottest and highest pumpage days of the year. That's how those things work. So we actually opened up some of these interconnects, and it worked out just fine. We felt we had to do that in an emergency. We didn't want the city to go below the proper pressures. So we were able to utilize some of these interconnects already. They do have meters in them. They're ready to go. Now, this is what we would call the phase one portion of the interconnects. And with the next slide, I'll be able to show you perhaps a little bit more information on the two phases. The phase one, we can provide about 500,000 gallons to your system and a peak system demand of about 2.4. And that takes into account some of the towers and things of that nature. And one of the things that Arlington has to do with phase one, and we're in the process of doing that, is we have to install another pump at our John Kabbalah plant, and we're in the process of doing that. We've got the pump ordered, and the plan is to have that pump installed in the spring of 21. While that's taking place, we are in fact speaking with TCEQ and getting all of their approvals as well. Phase two has the addition of 3 other pumps in Arlington at our pump station, and that will give us the firm capacity that we need to fulfill any demand that Kennedale would ever present to the city of Arlington. Now, immediately, TCQ won't allow us to serve all the system until we get all of those 6 pumps put in place. It's what's known as firm capacity. And one of the things that surprised us last year in the summertime with the warm weather and the demands in the Western pressure plane that are, some are Arlington customers, but also Kennedale, but also keep in mind that we're now feeding Bethesda Water Supply Corporation out of there, is we had a peak day where we came very close to the TCEQ regulations. So we put the new pumps in high gear. We thought we'd be several years out in having to purchase those, quite frankly, but we expect to have all of phase one and phase two done by the end of 2021. So in the fall of next year, we should be able to basically take your well supply down to its absolute minimum, meet all of your needs moving forward, and Arlington not having to build anything in the future to serve you as a customer. Now, there's one thing that I do have to point out. There is a storage tank near the high school that we do have to refurbish. The pumps there are fine, but the tank needs some serious work, and we'll need to get that done between the spring and the fall in order for us to move into phase two of this plan. Okay, so the next step, as I talked about, we've got phase one where we're purchasing that pump. It'll be in spring of 2021. It's already ordered. They're in the process of manufacturing it. Phase two has the interconnects that I've already described, but we also need that pumping capacity that comes from that tank and the pumps that are existing there. So like I said, the third bullet point there is we have to get that finished by the end of the fall in order to take advantage of complete system supply. So with that, I've kind of covered the meters, our customer service, and then what we have as far as the interconnects and the supply to the city. And again, I do want to apologize for the grief that has been encountered up to this point. I'm very disappointed, and I'm not looking to just cast blame, but as I've kept George apprised, it's been incredible working with Neptune in a negative way, trying to get this register issue resolved. We were kind of on our own trying to solve this, unfortunately, and I think we've got a great plan moving forward. Just want to thank the staff that we've worked with there in Kennedale, because they've been great to work with in solving a lot of these problems, being patient with us, and I think this next step forward with this billing this month will be a tremendous difference. So with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
All right, thank you, Craig. Questions, Linda?
I think this is a great presentation, Craig. Thank you so much. We really needed to hear this. Our residents needed to hear this firsthand. And I also would like to request a copy of this PowerPoint. It has a lot of good information in there. Just thank you so much for it.
Be more than happy to do it, and I look for much better days coming up. And again, thank you for your patience.
Linda, we did get the presentation and I just didn't have time to get it to you, but we'll get it to you tomorrow.
Thank you.
Josh?
I'll just mirror what she said. It was an outstanding presentation. It answered a lot of questions. And first and foremost, I just want to thank you for your hard time on this. I know you've been working extremely hard, both Kennedale and Arlington. I think it's a great partnership. And no matter what you hear out there, I just know that you guys are working extremely hard on this to get this taken care of for our citizens. So I really appreciate that. So thank you.
Sandra?
No, I don't have any questions, but I do want to thank Mr. Cummings for talking with me last month and giving me an update on everything that was going on. So thank you, Mr. Cummings.
You're quite welcome.
Chad?
I have no questions, but just mirroring the comments. Thanks for the information. This is exactly kind of the core information that we needed to get back to some of the people that have been making phone calls so that we can give them a little more detail and a better understanding to explain it to them as well, and let them know there is bright light just around the bend. And
it most certainly is, and I could start, sleeping again at night.
Me too. So
I
thank
hear
you.
you.
Chris?
My only question would be to Mr. Cummings, does he foresee any issues with TCEQ approving this so that we can stick to the timeline?
No, I don't. We've already filled out the checklist that they have asked for information. In the analysis of getting the design for that pump or pumps that I spoke of, we had to do a lot of the legwork that is necessary for TCEQ to get that pump design done. So we think that there shouldn't be any particular problem with that at all. We're utilizing not only the storage that you have in Kennedale, the elevated storage, because that's the important part. They look at the peak hour demand under the worst case scenario. So it's the hottest day when you're using them the most. And then they look at the largest pumping unit that you have being out of service. That's what they call their firm capacity. And that's what we've designed everything around. So it's a combination of your elevated storage, our Terra Verde elevated storage, and the pumps that we are purchasing and installing in the summer of 21. So no, I do not expect any problems.
And just as everyone else has said, thank you and your team, your workers. I know you've worked tirelessly through all these hurdles, and we greatly appreciate it as a city, the work you've put in for us. Thank you for your time today as well.
Not a problem. I probably know even more about your system than some of our employees. I've been out there, and if anybody sees a RAV4 with flashers on kicking around in the dirt for a meter box, that's probably me.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Craig. We appreciate your hard work.
Thank you.
All right. Item 5, George.
Thank you, Craig. We appreciate you.
Certainly. Thank you.
COVID-related emergency.
I do not have anything to report there, Mr. Mayor.
Right. So we're on an upswing on COVID again, as you've been paying attention to the news that we're swinging up to our peak in the summer. So, George, I did ask you about looking at some guidelines on trick or treating that's coming up. I know the county has posted some of those guidelines for safety. So we might want to get that news out there because we're going to have trick or treaters out soon.
Well, we're going to ask you, Mr. Mayor, to please not go door to door as you usually do, but I will get some information together. See what guidelines we got. I have not done that today.
All right. So we will move into, Drew, do you have any updates on executive session?
No, I thought I might, but I don't. So
All right.
We don't need to go in.
Then we'll move into the regular session. Please note, Leslie, that everybody's here. That was for the work session. Item 1 is visitors and citizen forum. Do we have any visitors or citizens wishing to speak?
that I'm aware of. I don't see any hands raised.
All right. Then we'll close the citizen visitor forum. We'll go to reports and announcements. Announcements from the city council. Linda?
Just the only thing I would say is just remind everyone when they go vote, which please do vote, go to the very end of the ballot because that's where your ISD and your city elections are at. So don't forget it, especially the very last one. That's all I have.
I saw that today. Sandra?
I don't have any updates.
Chad?
It's important enough to say again, go vote. And yeah, it's a long ballot. Just keep looking at the things and pushing the screen until there's nothing else to push. Don't give up. Do not give up. Vote, vote, vote.
Josh?
No, I don't have anything.
Chris?
Same thing. The last time I looked at the meter today at just before 3 o'clock, Tarrant County had hit 25% of all eligible voters that already voted. So again, please go to the bottom of the ballot, vote in your local elections.
And then updates from the mayor real quickly, going back to the voting thing. If you see the long line at the library, you can also go to Tarrant County College South Campus. No lines, no wait, and you can get in and out pretty quickly. I did that this morning. So you can go to, I see Priscilla Harrison has said she's all voted up. Good. All right, reports from the city manager.
Mayor, I do not have anything to report.
All right, financial reports for the city.
Lakita, did you have any highlights that you wanted to point out on your financial?
Hello, no, not particularly any highlights. Everything was pretty normal for the month of September. Just keep in mind that everything that's presented there are actual, they are just what is on the general ledger at this time. And we know that they're not actuals. In the coming months, those financials will be audited and we'll have a more accurate picture of where we actually ended the fiscal year. But
All
no
right.
other highlights other than that.
Schedule of investment activity for the quarter.
No highlights, Mayor, unless there are any questions. You have in front of you all of the bank balances for the city, as well as cash position for every fund. So if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Any questions from the council? Hearing none, we'll move to the consent agenda. I'm going to remove item number 2 from the consent agenda. And so the only consent agenda item we'll have will be approval of the minutes. These items are routine, require little or no deliberation, and are considered routine. So if discussion is desired, may be removed for separate consideration. Looking for approval of the minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve consent agenda, the minutes.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All right. We're going to do this the right way. Leslie's going to call the roll. If you're voting yes, hold up your green card. If you're voting up no, hold up your red card, which also means you're expelled from the soccer game.
Okay.
So Leslie?
Josh Altum. Chris Pugh.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Lee. Yes. Linda Rhodes.
May I ask a question before I vote?
You just did. Yes, you may.
On the motion for item F, where it says about the police officer, motion to amend, it's at the very bottom of page 3. It says motion to amend the budget. Removal of 1 police officer from the budget. That was the agenda item. And then it said the vote was moved by Chad Wandell, seconded by Mayor Pro Tem Lee. And then motion fails 1-4 with Altum, Pugh, Mayor Pro Tem Lee, and Linda and Rhodes voting against. And I know that was the time where that's why these are being implemented now, because it was hard to hear. But my vote was, I voted with the motion. And I remember that because I thought it was odd that the the person that seconded the motion did not vote in favor of it. Does that make sense?
You're saying you voted with Chad on the removal of the officer,
Yeah,
and you want
but then,
the minutes to reflect
but
that.
okay.
Well,
Okay.
I believe I second that motion, and I second it so we could go ahead and just take the vote on it, not necessarily because I was going to.
Okay. Okay. So it still failed. It doesn't change anything, you know,
Yeah.
it still failed, but
Leslie will correct that.
okay.
Yeah.
So with that correction, can we approve them?
Yes.
Okay.
Green.
Yes.
And then
And Chad Wando.
Okay.
Green.
And you
Yeah,
should have
I-
never made the soccer reference. This is gonna get weird.
I know, right? I don't even know anything about soccer.
Mayor, can I make a quick comment?
Yeah.
Since we do have some people that may not have video capability, we should probably orally state our vote as well as hold up the card, because someone may not be able to see what color card you're holding and not know how you're voting.
Well, the motion passed. I will announce it 5-0.
Thank you.
So yeah, please speak up. Good point. All right, items for consideration. Consider an ordinance amending the school zone times and designating a portion of Mistletoe Drive as a one-way street from Paul Lane to Reeves Lane. And I want to call on Chris Pugh real quickly.
Mayor, I've spoken to some folks in the neighborhood, and there's really been little to no communication about these changes. And I think that we should get some input from the citizens that will be directly affected by this before we broadly implement a change, especially if you live on Mistletoe and your street's going a different direction.
Are you suggesting we postpone this ordinance for a month?
Yes. So I'd like to make it that we'd like to make a motion that we postpone this until we can communicate with some of the citizens in the neighborhood.
Do I have a second? Second
Second
by
that.
Chad Wando. Any discussion about the postponement? All right, Leslie, would you call the roll and please hold your card and say yay or nay?
Josh Altum,
Yay.
Chris Pugh,
Yay.
Yay.
Rhodes,
Yay.
Chad Wando.
Yay.
All right, motion passed unanimously. Let's move on to, as part of an impact fees study, appoint a member to the Capital Improvements Advisory Committee who resides within the city's ETJ. This would be a temporary appointment until the impact fee committee is done.
Thank you, Mayor. I did send a email to all of you today that I hope you received, that I had spoken to an applicant or a potential appointee who lives in the ETJ but outside the city, Crystal Flemings, and either she and or her husband Bruce would be eligible to fill this position. And I am recommending to you that if council concurs, that you appoint both of those people to the Impact Fee CIP committee. And then we will have two representatives from the ETJ, but be assured of having one present when we have the meetings with the engineers.
And George, can you explain why, or maybe Drew, why we need somebody from the ETJ?
Well, the engineers, Mayor, who are doing the study on the CIP and have clarified for us that state law requires that the committee have a member, at least one member, who resides in the ETJ if the city's plan and the impact fees, if the capital improvements plan and the application of fees could be applied outside the city limits in the ETJ, the committee needs to have a member of a resident of the ETJ on the committee for that. And our engineers have included that ETJ area as having an impact on traffic and future capital projects. So we would prefer to have the representative from the ETJ on the committee when the engineers present the plans to that advisory committee.
And this committee will meet once, twice, 3 times?
We anticipate that it will meet probably twice, at least twice, and we would anticipate that they would meet for probably not more than a couple of hours each time. The work could be presented and we could respond to any questions that they might have. So probably twice, maximum of about 3 hours.
Any questions for George? All right, I'll entertain a motion to appoint. George, you want to repeat those names for us?
I think it's Crystal and Bruce Plemons, who live on Wilson Road in the city's ETJ.
Anyone want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion. I'll make a motion to approve the appointment of Crystal Plemons and Bruce Plemons to the Capital Improvement Advisory Committee.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, any further discussion? If not, Leslie, would you call for the vote?
And Josh Altum,
Yay.
Yay. Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Lee,
Yay.
Linda Rhodes,
Yes.
and Chad Wendell.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. All right, next up is a public hearing considering approval of an ordinance nominating Sabre Communications Corporation as an enterprise zone project.
Mayor, did you skip item 2 under individual consideration?
Oops, sorry about that. Way ahead of myself here. Consider approval of an amendment to the current contract with Waste Connections regarding the proposed rate adjustment for residential and commercial solid waste collection, transport, disposal, and recycling services. And I believe we have, who do we have on for us today, George?
Well, Lakita is here and Mr. Hunter Fletcher with Waste Connections, I understand is on call. If you have any questions. And
Lakita, can you give us a
Sure. Hi, Mayor and Council. This evening, we're just basically looking at a 6th Amendment to the contract with Waste Connections. We know that we've had them for a number of years. When we brought it, the pricing forward, the last time council looked at this, there was no price increase at all. This year, Waste Connections is asking for a 2% increase in the rate that the city pays to them in the 3 categories of waste collections. That is included within your council report, the pricing itself, and of course, that 2% increase will be passed on to the customer. And so we're just bringing that forward. Staff is recommending approval. Since I've been here, I haven't encountered a lot of complaints as far as with waste collections and things like that. So we do see it was beneficial, the service that we're getting from Waste Connections, and we do appreciate it. And we understand that it is tough economic times at this time currently, but we still, you know, looking at the CPI index and regular inflation, are asking for that 2%. So we're just asking the council to consider that this evening. And if you have any other questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Well, I think real quick, we'll have Mr. Fletcher make a few statements here for us.
Yes. Can you all hear me fine?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Yes. Yeah. So just to kind of repeat what you said is, yeah, just year over year, like last year, we didn't decide to do the CPI increase. It's actually the All Urban Consumers Price Index adjustment is actually down 0.99% year over year, but the operational cost side has went up 5.4%, and we decided to go with a 2% price increase just with the increase in volume and everything considering going on with all of our cities. And we've also gave support of, you know, how everything has increased on our side as well.
All right. Any questions for Lakita or Mr. Fletcher?
I have a question. I don't know, my memory is all there, but I want to say, did the owner not come like 3-4 years ago? I want to say he was wearing like a Super Bowl ring, and
That's a George Vulash.
he begged for like a 4% raise and increase, and we gave it to him. Did we not?
That was not last year, though.
Yeah, I'd say last year, but it was, I want to say it was about 3-4 years ago.
There was an increase. I don't remember the percentage. I thought it was 3, maybe 4%.
Okay.
And it was delayed, and it was finally approved by the council, as I recall.
Okay. Good. I thought I was going crazy.
No, those aren't mutually exclusive, Josh. Any other questions?
I have a question. Just to kind of, I guess, nip some rumors or whatever out there on the recycling, since this does affect it as well. Are we still getting actual recycling service as far as when it's picked up? Is it being taken to be recycled properly?
Yes, there's not any than that.
Okay, thank you.
Hunter, is it possible that somehow you could schedule a tour for council members of your recycling center? I know it's pretty far north, but I wouldn't mind seeing that.
Yes, we definitely get that. But yes, we can definitely get that lined up between with y'all and with our DM district manager Abel, and we'll reach out to y'all tomorrow on that.
Yeah, so if you're interested in seeing the recycling, might be a good idea to go out there and take a look at it. Any other questions? All right, I'll entertain a motion to consider the approval of the amendment to the current contract with Waste Connections regarding the proposed rate adjustment for residential, commercial solid waste collection, transport, disposal, and recycling services.
I'll make a motion to approve the contract, the amended contract.
I have a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
A second from Chad Wondell. Any further discussion? Leslie, would you call the roll? Make sure to speak and hold up your card.
Josh Altum,
Yay.
Chris Pugh,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Lee,
Yay.
Linda Rhodes,
Yes.
Chad Wondell.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. All right, now we're going to a public hearing to consider approval of an ordinance nominating Saber Communications Corporation as an enterprise zone. Thank you, Mr. Fletcher.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is a public hearing, but I'd like Melissa Daly, if she would, to present the presentation and then hold the public hearing.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Council. The Texas Enterprise Zone program has been in place for quite a few years and really is a program that's designed to create investment and jobs in economically distressed areas. This is I think, particularly good program for cities because it is one that allows for a rebate or refund of sales and use tax that is the state's portion, but not the city's portion. So it's a great incentive program that essentially doesn't cost the city anything. We were approached by Saber Communications Corporation, which bought Fort Worth Tower back in 2015. And Fort Worth Tower, of course, is a major employer in Kennedale, employing about 350 people. And they have asked us, the city, to nominate them for an enterprise zone project. I gave you a summary in the staff report if you've had a chance to read it about Saber. This is something, as I said, we think would benefit the city without any cost to the city, particularly with their expected growth in coming years and investment in their current facility. We do have representatives here from Saber. If you have any questions or would like to ask them to speak about their request. Staff believes this is kind of a win-win situation and does recommend approval.
Who do we have here from Saber?
I think there's several folks here.
Yeah. Jeremy Moore, General Manager of the Kennedale facility, and then Bruce Peschel, the Plant Superintendent for the Kennedale facility as well.
Would you like to make some comments as the applicant here?
Yeah, in essence, I mean, we've been tightly linked with the city of Kennedale for over 25 years. It's been a pleasure of mine to serve on the Kennedale Chamber of Commerce over the last 2 years. And for us, it's been something that we've been able to grow because we've had the support from the city, through all different facets of it, through the policies, as well as just the assistance. And we've been linked in through philanthropic events. And so we feel very comfortable about our growth pattern and what we've shown our sustainability. And so I think this would be a great win-win for both parties as moving forward, especially with our capital investments that we have coming up over the next 5 years.
Any questions for the applicant? All right, I will open the public hearing. Have we had anybody sign up to speak at the public hearing?
Not that I'm aware of, Mayor.
All right, then we will close the public hearing. And then I'll entertain a motion on consider approval of an ordinance nominating Sabre Communications as an enterprise zone project.
Yes, Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that we nominate Sabre Communications for an enterprise project.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Any further discussion?
I'd just like to say to other businesses that are in Kennedale, if you see opportunities like this, please grab them and run. We got your back on that. So,
Well said. Leslie, would you call the roll?
Josh Altum,
Yeah.
Chris Pugh,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Lee,
Yay.
Linda Rhodes,
Yes.
and Chad Wandell.
yes.
Motion passed unanimously. All right, so that looks like almost everything we have. I just want to say that we should note that probably maybe at the next regular council meeting, this might be a completely different council. Maybe Sandra has moved up someplace else and others may be gone, but I just want to say that it's been fun serving with everybody, and it's always been a pleasure, even during the tough times of the budget. And good luck to everybody. So with that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Have a second.
Second.
I'm starting to worry there for a moment. Leslie, would you call the roll?
Josh Altum,
Yeah.
Chris Pugh,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Lee,
Yes.
and Linda Rhodes,
Yes.
and Chad Wandell.
Yes.
Those were all pretty eager ones. Sandra was like, well, and Chad's like right in your face.
Told you it's the soccer thing.
Thank you, everybody. We'll see you next time.
Bye.
Yeah.